copy this link and send it to them right now. Don't wait any longer. Just copy it and text it and send them out, okay? We also have a Facebook, so if you want to go there and share that, that will be amazing. Because let me tell you, we do know that this is going to be beneficial for you. It's beneficial for us, even as we talk about it. So we know it's going to be beneficial for you and your friends and your family.
Yeah, and we also want to mention that you have an opportunity to check out the description right now because we are giving away our Seeds free starter program. So when you get the chance to take a look at the description, go into it and go get the free program. It's there for you. It's going to be able to help you build your wealth and grow your finances to the next level. But so for tonight, we talked about having an accountant tonight, a former CFO. We talked about what that's going to look like financially. So Deanna is actually an accountant, if you guys do not know that. She's worked for non-for-profit companies for the last 30 years, helping organizations. So she was a CFO and accountant, and she's not only helped non-for-profit organizations, but she's actually helped organizations like build financial outlooks, forecast, all those different things. So she's super passionate about helping people every day align their finances with their faith and purpose. So Diana, we're excited that you're here with us tonight, with me tonight. She's actually my wife, so she's with me every night. But what we're gonna do tonight is something a little different. We're going to do this kind of like an interview. I want to ask her some questions from the perspective of being an accountant, right? Not just what we do with stewarding money, and the regular things that we do, but this is actually a different way of looking at things. So let's start off here and just look at a few questions. So we're calling this session tonight Faith Meets Finances, right?
Yeah.
So let's start here. Why do you believe that faith and finances must be connected, not just separated?
Wow. So, first of all, I want to say thank you. And listen, we do these conversations the last Tuesday of every month. But it is the first time that I'm actually like gonna be speaking about my other experience, right? We usually talk about very personal stuff, and diversifying your income. But today we want to tap into my personal experience in my professional life. So just like you said, Chad, right? I've been working for over 30 years, like in executive leadership. I'm very blessed that I was able to work for, I would say, the last 5 years, 7 years actually, around the States, right? Not just in my state, but even in the other states. So it allowed me to actually meet so many people, be able to work with so many organizations. I would actually say that if I would add all of their budgets up, it might be more than $1 billion.
Yes.
And what I was able to do is that I was able to support CFOs on their role. And I am so thankful, Shad, that you thought about, this theme about connecting faith and finances, because sometimes we think one and the other, they don't talk to each other, right? We just go to church, we do give tithes and we give offerings, but there's like almost a wall between those tithes and offerings that we're giving and seeds and all of that with actually our belief system. So today I love your question, right? And I almost forgot about it. Could you just repeat it for us? Because
So
I just wanted
today
to
let's
give.
start with why do you believe and that finances cannot be separated from faith? Why do you believe they have to be together and combined?
Yeah, actually, I think I'm gonna share with you a little bit of I'm gonna share a lot of my story, but I'm going to start with the reason why I became an accountant, okay? Because that is my spiritual connection between faith and finances. I was born, and since I was born, my parents took me to church. I grew up in a Pentecostal church. We believe in tithes, we believe in offerings. That was great, right? So here I go to university, and I went to university to become a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So I was accepted in the pre-med program. I started my first year, continued my second year. But as I was on my second year, something happened to me. I got into a car wreck. Yes.
Wow.
So I was driving my car, right? Got into a car wreck, and I just started asking God, God, why did you allow this to happen to me? And while I was walking, and asking these questions, like, if you're protecting me, how is it that I got into a car wreck? Yeah, I wasn't doing anything really bad. And right there, the Holy Spirit spoke to me. I believe in the Holy Spirit. We believe in the Holy Spirit,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
And he shared with me, and he was like, hey, you're leaving from here. And I asked him, like, where am I going? And he said, you're going to this university. And then I asked him, what am I going to do there? And he said, you're going to become an accountant. Now listen, I went to school to become a doctor, a pediatrician, because since I was like 2 or 3 years old, I was passionate and in love to helping children, especially in countries that didn't have the
Mm-hmm.
resources. Okay. So I was like, that doesn't make sense. Accounting with helping children and helping families, that does not connect. Well, here, fast forward, I did sign up. I did apply, let me say, not sign up, but I did apply and register. And I transferred to this other university. And while I'm doing my accounting degree, and I still had no idea what was the connection, I go to Honduras for a mission trip. Okay. So when I'm there, this is like over 30 years ago. So when I'm there, I have a conversation with this gentleman, and he explained to me how he was the treasurer of a board of this denomination, of this church group of churches in Honduras. And he kept talking to me about how finances and faith were connected. I had never connected the
Mm-hmm.
dot. I saw like us giving as
Mm-hmm.
a family as part of almost like a process. You're a
Okay.
believer, you go to church, you give your tithe, you give your offering, and if you have more, give more. It was almost like a habit or a routine. There wasn't really a connection in my brain
Mm-hmm.
of why this was connected to my faith. And when I had this conversation, I was able to start understanding the connection between my belief system in God and the knowledge that I was acquiring at the university.
Yes. That's crazy, right? Because we don't always think faith and finances, traditionally those two things are kind of separated. Even in the church today,
Yeah.
faith and finances are really not talked about together. Sure, in most churches, they talk about giving, tithing, different things, but beyond that, it's really not even spoken about because a lot of times our finances, we try to guard them. We all guard our finances. That's
Yeah.
like next to our own personal self and maybe our spouses. That's the next most important thing. And sometimes that is the most important thing in our life. So we feel like we have the control over it. But that's why we want to have this conversation tonight, like
Yeah.
why it's so important to link the two together. So, we want to talk about, I have another question for you. We're going to talk about the
Sure.
stewardship mindset, right?
Let's go.
So, you've worked with major budgets, right?
Yes.
But also you've walked with families through personal finances. What are the key mindset shifts Christians must embrace about stewardship? Both organizations really and Christians.
Yeah, so this I love, and I think I'm gonna love all your questions.
Good.
Because I do like talking about this, not just from the perspective of like classes and lessons, and let's talk about budgeting, but really the behind the scenes. What was my trigger? Why is it that I'm excited? Some of you might be like, Diana, an accountant, and she's excited about it. Yes, I love numbers and I'm excited about it. When we talk about the Word of God and stewardship and Christians, I even go deeper in my excitement and having fun about this topic, because it is important to have a mindset shift. So, in my profession
Mhm.
for the last 30 years, again, I've been going to all of these organizations, and we learn how to execute business plan. So if you've been in business school, you know what I'm talking about, right? If you started, like your own business, or maybe you even took some classes, about a business plan.
Mhm.
If you took a commercial loan, you've heard about a business plan. So in business, we create a business plan.
Mhm.
And the business plan has a vision, it has a mission. We build objectives or goals, right? And then we have all of these different strategies that we come up with for either 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
Right.
So in organizations, we focus mainly in those 5 years, and we could have even bigger plans. But what I saw that it was very interesting is that we as business owner would have a business plan. We will have a business plan for an organization of 500,000 or $1,000, or maybe,
Mhm.
$150 million. But we wouldn't have a plan for our lives. We wouldn't have a business plan for our lives. So, as I was growing up and seeing all of these opportunities and meeting even different churches, because again, I'm very blessed that I've been able to work with many churches in different states as well. I was able to see that there was a disconnect, a mindset that needed
Mhm.
to be shifted, because I'm a tither, I give offerings,
Mhm.
but as a Christian, how do I embrace stewardship? How do I connect those dots together? And they were really not connected. I will have a business, I will have a business plan, but for my personal wealth, the wealth that the Lord have given me, I didn't have one. I,
Mm.
I I just don't have one, right? Or didn't have one. Even when I graduated, Chad, I had my 5 year degree, and just because I just love school, okay? I just kept going and going and take more credits. I took almost over 160 credits on my bachelor's degree. Then I kept going to my master's degree, and I kept seeing this over and over.
Yeah.
Business plan, stewardship, but we didn't talk about that at the church level.
But and then I want to, I'm listening to what you're saying. So think about this. You went to college, you got your bachelor's degree, your master's degree in accounting, and you mean your professors never said, hey, you got to have a personal budget and you got to make sure you manage your own finances before you manage like finances of Fortune 500
Yeah,
companies.
I would even take it farther, right? So, not just a personal budget, we're talking about creating a plan,
Hmm.
a wealth plan, just like we do a business. How the business had a vision, I didn't have a vision. I didn't write it down. I had it in my heart, because since I was very young, God poured that vision in myself, but I never wrote it down. I didn't have it on post-it notes, So it was about storing all
Hmm.
of those resources, but by starting by creating a plan, changing my mindset that if I was stewarding or managing an organization with a business plan, why wasn't I writing one for my own life and just asking the creator to give me the instructions?
So it's super important, right, that we have a wealth plan or even a business plan for our own personal lives. We were just having this conversation earlier today about David. He was building a temple and he actually, it's in Psalms or Proverbs, he says like, how would a man go about to build a house without a plan, right?
Yes.
So same thing with us. How do we go out to the grocery store? How do we go out to buy a new car or whatever, go shopping online, Amazon, all these different things without having a plan? Why would anybody do that, right? We have no idea what we're doing with our money, but we just start spending it. And that's one thing that you guys could do, even starting today, tonight, is start to think about what you're spending your money on. You don't have to have a full out budget or wealth plan built, but you do need to have a plan like, what am I going to spend my money on?
And I would say, take it deeper, right? A business plan starts with vision and mission. The budget is only the outcome of
Mhm.
that vision. So if my vision is to help children, right, in early education, then my money should mirror that. It should show that I'm spending money in curriculum, in books, in teachers, in school supplies. If my vision is that I want to share the gospel to all people around the world, guess what? When I look at my finances, I should see money
Mhm.
allocated towards what? Either some organization that goes out, maybe once a year, I allocate some of my funds to go to another nation and share the gospel. Maybe if my church has a mission fund, I give to that mission fund,
Yeah.
but the money becomes, right? Like it mirrors, it should look like your vision and your mission. The word of God says that the people perish because they don't have a vision. But when you have a vision, you will not perish and your finances will come into that order.
Hey, so we're live right now. So as we're going along, and if some of these questions bring questions to your mind that you want to or comments, please share in the chat. Where I'm
Yes.
actually I'm not paying attention. I'm actually looking to the side to
Yes.
watch the chat to make sure that we're not missing anything. But we
Yeah.
want this to be interactive. We want to, hear your questions. Maybe we can answer them right now as we're
Yeah.
going. So let me go on to the next question. So the reality of financial struggles, right? So
Yes.
here's the thing. Why do you think that there's so many believers still struggling financially, even when they tithe and they pray? How can that be
Yeah.
happening, right?
Wow. And this is big, right? Because we're talking about organizations and individuals. And I've seen this so often. People give their tithe, people pray, and they're still struggling. But we go back to what we've been
Hmm.
saying, right? If you don't have a vision, and if you have a spouse, I'm not talking about two different visions. I'm talking about coming with your
Hmm.
business partner, right? And having a
Hmm.
conversation and being like, hey, Chad, what do you think God is calling you to do? Are you passionate about something? And this is like a conversation we had before we got married, and he started sharing with me about his love about going to other nations. And you know what I love about this? About 2 years ago, I was having a conversation with my pastor. Yes, Pastor Julie from V1 Church. We love her.
Yeah.
And Pastor Julie knew Chad before I met him. Okay. So they known each other for maybe like 10 years. I don't know. So she was telling me that when she met Chad, she said, hey, Chad, tell me, what do you feel
Hmm.
called to do? And this is the question for you today. If you are tithing, you're praying, but you're still struggling financially, I want to ask you, friend, what do you feel you were chosen to do? His response was, I feel called to Spanish speaking nations. Now he forgot about this, and I told him about it. And then he remembered, because the beautiful thing about life, and when you write down your vision, is because later on he went to Honduras, He went to Mexico. He went to Spain.
Mm-hmm.
When he met me, he said, I love going to the nations. And nowadays, we live in Puerto Rico and we open our home. We moved here to open a church for V1 Church.
Yeah. So it's actually
Full
come
circle.
circle. But this really speaks about this question because I know there's many of you that are thinking the same thing. Like, hey, I tithe, I pray, I ask God, I'm nice to people. Why am I struggling? But sometimes it's super practical. So let me break this down a little bit for you. So you tithe. Okay, so you're tithing your 10% and you're getting up in the morning, you're praying, asking God. So you get a pay increase at your job, right? So when you take that money, okay, you get a pay increase. Let's just say it's $100. So now on Friday nights, you go out to dinner because you have an extra $100. Okay, you got a pay increase, but now you spent that extra money. Maybe you only spent half of it, and then you use the other to pay off some debt, which is fine. But you took that pay increase and you spent it.
Mm-hmm.
Or you feel this is another big struggle for a lot of people. You are struggling with money, you don't have that much, it's always a problem, but somehow you find time and money to stop at Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks once a week, 2 or 3 times a week. And sometimes it feels like, well, you know what, it's tough anyways, I want to feel good, I want to treat myself. But this goes back to what Deanna was saying. When we align our purpose, and you need to figure out what your purpose is.
That's the word,
That's the
Sean.
number one.
Purpose.
When you align your purpose with what God has called you to do, then you will align your money with that purpose. So for us, it was to go to the nations, move to Puerto Rico, help launch a church here. So what we had to do was cut back. We stopped going out and doing stuff. There are certain things that we wanted that we just didn't buy because we knew it was aligned to our purpose. Now, I can tell you, since we did that, we've been able to move here. I was able to leave my job of I don't know, 25 years. And we've not gone without anything. We've actually lived the same lifestyle, if not better, because we aligned it with what God called us to do. And that's what I think happens with a lot of people that tithe and pray, but they're still not lining up the money that God gave them, even if it's a little bit.
Yeah.
They're not stewarding it in all areas. Yeah, they're tithing, but then that's not a license to just spend the rest of it wherever you want, do what you want with it. Because you're a steward, right?
Yeah, and I would say I remember when we had the income, right? And I got a change in my income. We did not change our spending habits. We stayed spending the same amount. Then our income kept increasing, but we did not spend our expenses. We did not, oh well, now we're gonna get more clothes. Now I'm gonna get more diamonds, or I'm just kidding, more this or more purses or more shoes. That's not what we did. We used that vision and mission to sift our expenses.
Exactly.
We would say, okay, we got this increase, we're going to save it, and we're going to invest it in this other, in trying to get a house, for example. Because when God calls us, we're believing that He's providing for this already by us investing the money. And then whatever this property makes, we are going to be able to use it in the future. And guess what? We are living it right now. So it is important for you to have that vision. It is important for you to be focused and intentional, not because you get a pay increase of 3%, 30%, or you got a new job that pays you more. It means to go out and buy a bigger house, or go out and get a new car. Oh no, because now I'm getting paid this amount, so I need to show. No, why not stay with your older car that is still working and save that money and invest it for the future?
Hey, so I see some comments coming in. Hi,
Yeah.
LaBelle, Lucinda. Actually, I see a friend from India, and there's a comment in there. Please guide house savings plans for people living in India,
Yeah.
which this is exciting because listen, the way, and this is going to lead right into what we're getting ready to go into.
More questions, huh?
This does not matter where you live, doesn't matter what country you're in, doesn't matter how much money you have. These are the exact same principles that Joseph used in the Bible.
Yeah.
And so that's what we've built this entire seeds program around, is the same principles that Joseph in the Bible used back in
Mm.
Egypt before there was government subsidies and before there was all these different things that we have today. So they work for anybody. It's
Yeah.
a principle. So leading into the next question,
Yes.
is there a Joseph principle that we're missing in today's financial habits?
Wow. I mean, that's great. You said it well. We use Joseph's story in the Bible to as like a foundation with other Bible verses in the New Testament, Proverbs, Psalms, you name it. There's wealth verses from Genesis all the way to the end to Revelations. But yeah, when you think about Joseph, the first thing that he did
Mm-hmm.
when Pharaoh asked him, "Hey, can you tell me what these dreams mean?" And God gave him that revelation and he shared, right? The second thing he did, he moved in wisdom. Think about it, like wisdom right there.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say, "Hold on." The Pharaoh asked him, "What should we do?" And the Spirit of God that was living in him, that lives in you and in me, prompt him immediately with a wise response. And he came up with a plan.
Exactly.
It was a plan of a vision. What was the vision? Well, we know that we're going to have 4 years of abundance and we're going to have years of scarcity, of needs. So that's my vision, right? I am going to see of a method so that we can sustain ourselves when we don't have enough income in the future. And he pursued that plan. He came up with a plan. Then he created what we call a wealth plan, right? He said, I am going to start saving a percentage. And if I remember correctly, he said 8%, right? Of everything that they were making, they were going to put an amount set aside for savings. And what happens when we put in place these principles is that when we have the time of troubles, because they're going to happen, it's in the
Yes.
Bible, right?
Yeah, it's coming.
It's in the Word of God. You are going to suffer. You are going to go through persecution. So when you go through those times, the Lord honors those principles. And that's when he brings multiplication and he brings blessing because we were obedient when we didn't have much.
Yeah, and that's I see LaBelle's question right here, which is great. This is exactly what we're talking about. She asked him, "How does it look like if you all of a sudden have one income coming in and you have to use the money you saved?"
Mhm.
This is exactly what Joseph's template's about. See, it happened, Egypt had, the years of plenty, then they have, many years of drought. That's really, it's the exact same thing. We have years of two incomes, or months of two incomes, and everything is going great. And all of a sudden, one person loses a job. So that's the time when we've been preparing for. That's what the savings is for. Now, I
Yes.
could tell you this has happened to us over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And we've even had even this year. So this, we're not excluded from this like you guys. We've even had this year where we had contracts for business things that we're doing, all of a sudden they dried up after some of the changes in the government. There was no income coming in that we're used to seeing. So we have two options at this point. We could either be like, "Oh man, this is terrible. God doesn't love me no more. How I've been doing everything great." Or we could do the opposite. We could be like, "Okay, God, what have you put in my hands? What have
Yeah.
you been teaching me this last few months, few years? and the way I've been saving, the way I've been budgeting. What have you been teaching me?
Mhm.
And we could take this time when these things happen, and this is what we're doing, is reset our minds, reset our plan. If we build out a wealth plan,
So good,
now
Jim.
we have to, now it's time we have to reset it, make it a little bit tighter. Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. I mean, we've done this. There's
Yeah.
certain things. Listen, right now I got a broken computer that I need to replace. I got a keyboard that some of the keys stopped working
Can
at.
I
Yeah, go ahead.
one of our story back in 2020? Remember when I said that we had two incomes, right? And I was working from home at that moment, and for COVID, actually June 30 of 2020, 5 years ago, around this time, I got a phone, like an email. Hey, we have to meet with you. And when I jumped into the call, there were a whole bunch of other people, and we were all laid off. The fun part actually was a little bit stressful. We were signing up on our new purchase of the house on July 1st.
We didn't even know if we are going to be able to close. We're literally like, I hope they don't check income like one last time, because we didn't know if we'd be able to get the
Yeah.
house.
We were like, are they going to reach out to my employer? Are they going to check my last pay stub? It was really concerning, but like the attitude, right? We were like, okay, hold on. Number one, when we had the two income, we were doing the right thing. We were saving money. We were living on one income.
Mhm.
Even though I had the other income, like we were putting aside and trying to invest and aside, we had, we were not living, like our expenses were not out of the two incomes, right? We were
No.
living in a smaller house. I was cooking all the time. So guess what? When I lost the job and now we were living in a house with a higher mortgage, we were at peace. I
Because
didn't have any job for
no, because
months.
what we did prior to that is we downsized. We moved into a duplex that we bought. So really, one side of the duplex that we were renting out paid for our mortgage almost. We had a little bit more. So we're able to save that and an income
Yeah.
basically. So we had to cut back. Now that house was not comfortable. It was small. There was three of us, and it was in the middle of COVID on top of it. So, but it's a sacrifice we made. And I know that when these things happen, it is not fun. And I understand it's like uncomfortable and it's hard and it feels like it's the end of the world and it'll never get better. But I promise you, it will get better. These things do not last forever. All these times that we go through are tests and challenges. The Bible says that we're going to go through tests, we're
Yes.
going to go through challenges, but this is when God could really do something miraculous in your life. And these are the times of your life that the greatest ideas come for you for businesses. These are the times of your life that you get to actually reset and do something what you're really designed to do. Because sometimes we get stuck in these jobs where we're there for 15,
Yes.
16, 17 years and we hate them.
Yeah, it's like a
But
circle.
we're so scared to leave them because we're so afraid of not having an income, and that's understandable. So when sometimes this stuff happens, look at it on the other side, like maybe this is a blessing that God is allowing to happen to me so I can move on to what he has for me next.
Can I share our story? What
Yes.
happened after that?
Yes.
So this is July. It happened June 30, right? We closed on the house like on July 2nd. We moved. Now remember, we don't have my income that we were counting, right? So we took the month of July. We got COVID, all three of us. We were in the house for a month. And guess what we finally decided to do? Write our plan for the family. We took these big post-it notes and we started writing what we felt God had called us to do, but we wrote it down. And it took us like a month. while we were sick and Chad was working in the deck, right? You were working
Yeah.
on the deck, and we kept writing, and I kept writing on my computer and asking and fasting, and we kept tithing, right? Like if nothing would have happened. Fast forward about 5 months after that, 6 months after that, once the plan was completed and we had all of this big plan and definitely supernatural, it's not something that we could do by our own strength. I got a phone call from one of my colleagues saying, Diana, would you like to do some consulting? And that was the beginning of the next cycle of blessings that was even more than what I had made before.
Yeah, I mean, so I see Lucinda. I want to shout out Lucinda right now because she's one of those amazing stories that have actually inspired us.
Yes.
Because we've known Lucinda basically when I told you that we lived in this duplex back in 2020, we met Lucinda there, and we've watched her like just go from to working at a daycare area to building her own business to going to school. Like she's a single mother and she is doing this. Like she's like determination, she's
Mhm.
focused, she's getting
Yes.
things straight, and she's stuck with us all these times. Like she's been here, she's listening to things and she's applying things that she's learning. So it's just an incredible story. So I'm telling you, if Lucinda's been able to do this as a single parent, like starting with really ground zero and build herself up, anybody could do it. It sometimes it feels like you're alone, but that's why it's so important to be in a community like this so you can lean
Yeah.
on other people and you can learn from each other.
Yes. Yes.
So let's go to the next question here.
Okay.
Breaking bad habits. Okay, so we all have bad habits, right?
We
Especially when it
do.
comes to finances.
We
So,
do.
so what are some of the common habits you've seen that people get stuck personally and organizationally, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is I love your questions, by the way. So, common habit is not going back to that vision, losing track of the vision. You get excited, we're making more money, or we feel stable. It's not even about making more money. We feel stable and we go away from that vision. In an organization, you would see this because some expenses start going up and no one noticed that it went up.
Mm-hmm.
Electricity, power, insurances, they increase and no one is looking at them. Or if they're looking at them, they're really not paying attention to it because we have this income steadily coming in. So for people, it's the same thing. There's common habits that
Mm-hmm.
I've seen where people get stuck. Sometimes it's the vehicle. Like there's a tendency, especially here in America, to get new cars or a better car, good transportation. Also, another one is the food budget. We feel scared when we don't see food on our cabinets. So we tend to go and buy all of this food, which we might not eat, which we might end up throwing away because I went when I was hungry, I went on to do the grocery list. So it keeps us stuck, it keeps us in a cycle. Technology is another big one for organizations and for people. We keep upgrading our cell phones. Well, why upgrade to another one and not stay with the old phone for at least a year? Looking at your different plans, same thing. We keep keeping the same plan over and over, and then you see that the bill goes up $10 and then 10 more, and then 3 years down the road your telephone bill that started at 50 is now $200.
Can you talk about like, let's think about like an organization, because
Mm-hmm.
some people don't realize that organizations sometimes could be just as messed up as our personally. So like when we think about an organization, you said they get stuck changing out software all the time,
Yeah.
or they don't relook at their plan to see where they've been spending. Like what
Yes.
have you seen with some organizations that's really taken downturns because of simple little things they could have changed?
Of course. So one of the things is like looking at financial statements monthly and looking at what you budget
What's a
versus.
financial statement for
Okay, so
people that don't know?
looking at your income and expenses, right? And thank you for bringing that up.
Mhm.
We call it the wealth plan at Seeds. So looking at that wealth plan or financial statement, which is looking at your income minus your expenses, but comparing the actual to the budget.
Mhm.
So we just stay looking at the budget and that's it. But we need to be able to monitor our budget with our actual, and not just every 3 months. Especially at the beginning, we need to do it monthly. So if I budgeted $300, we need to be okay to look at the credit cards if I use them, to look at my bank account or my cash and see how much I spent. Because one of the things you and I have seen is that people are like, I didn't spend $700 on food.
I've thought that about ourselves sometimes. I look at our bill and I'm like, where did that money go? There's no way we spent that until you go line item by line item, right?
Yeah, yes. So you see that it's very important for, so if you're single, right? Find a friend, find a sister, a brother that is going through something similar. If you have a spouse, definitely you have to join forces with your spouse. And I get it that you might feel like, no, my spouse is the one that is really good with money and I'm not good. But listen, the ownership is for both of you. Because if one does it and not the other one, believe me, the person who's dealing with the money is going to feel the strain. Same thing happens with organizations. You have non-profit organizations and you have executive leadership looking at the objectives, looking at the money, and then you might have other people from the program side, they're just focusing on the vision. No, we need to get this, we need to get that. But that's the importance and the value of adding both, putting both things together. I'm a visionary, but we need to keep track of our income, our expenses, budget versus actual.
Yeah, simple. So really, organization, non for profit, is no different than your personal finances.
Mhm.
They're ran the exact same thing.
Yes.
So you have just as much control over your personal finances
Mhm.
as somebody, as CFO, has over the organization.
If you think about why are people being laid off in so many places, they're being laid off because an executive leadership in a household, who's going to be the executive leadership? You are.
Yeah, true.
You are the CEO. You are the CFO. Congratulations, we've promoted you, okay?
Without the paycheck.
Well, they're making some money, right? And that's the thinking hat that we have to put on. God called me. He's the owner, but I am his executive employee. I listen to God. I have a share for him, and I said, God, why did you put us together as a couple? God, I am a mother, and I was a single mother too. So, like, I am a mother. God, what is the calling of our family? And he's going to pour his calling over you. And then what you need to do is literally monthly look at that vision and sit down and look at those actuals and your budget line items. And if there's anything that you overspent, it's okay. Listen, just for the next month, put other boundaries until you are already started saving money, and the Lord will honor you, because this is a principle. You see it on David,
Yep.
you see it in Solomon, you see it on Joseph. You see it even in the New Testament, how Jesus had a treasurer. He had a person running the finances.
Yeah.
So welcome to your executive role, okay?
And you really have to start seeing yourself that way. So personal finances, wealth creation, it is really, there's no mystery to it. It's not hard. It's about discipline,
Yeah.
and it's about making little choices to just change a couple things here and there. It's about sacrificing a little bit now for something larger later.
Yes.
And that's why it's so important, like we keep saying, to stay connected. Keep tuning in, keep join the Seeds program, because it will get you to where you want to go.
Yeah,
Even
I
with
would,
us,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I would say, the community for in our app,
Yeah,
that's the
diversify.
reason why we built the Diversify community, because we knew how important it is to have a community, to have people to connect with and ask questions. And like if you download the app today, and we have the information on this description, we're gonna put it. If you download the app, there's a community just like a Facebook where you can ask questions and we will get back to you. And your question is not a bad question, because if you have it, other thousands of people will have that same
Yeah.
question.
And we understand some of you guys are married, you have spouses, but your spouse is not interested in finances or they don't want anything to do with it.
Yes.
Join the community.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're here for, to help, to be somebody to lean on, to ask questions, because you will be the person, if you're in a relationship and only you're the only one that's really driving this thing, you will be the leader that will pull the other person in. Once they
Yeah.
start seeing the change in you and they actually start seeing the change in your finances, it will draw them, because what you're doing are God principles, and they don't ever fail. They don't ever like go out of style. They're always going to work.
I love that. They never go out of
They
style.
don't.
No.
So let me ask another question. What
Okay.
habits have you personally had to unlearn as a financial leader?
Wow. So unlearn. I think wow, for me to unlearn, it was at the beginning, okay, of when I graduated from my accounting degree. I had my degree, but again, I I wasn't doing a budget for me. Like no one really was like, Diana, you have to build your budget and you have to write like a business plan for yourself. What is your vision? What is your mission? Let's talk about your income. Is it a lot? No one did that, right? And I'm not blaming anyone. It's just what happened.
Mhm.
So I had to unlearn how to do life without the plan. I had to learn to do life with a plan. And it wasn't easy, because the first thing that I did when I graduated, like I graduated, I started a job, I was driving 4 hours every single day to my job, and my car broke 2 months after my it left me right in the middle of the road. And guess what young Diana did? Say it, say it, say it.
What'd she do?
I went and bought a new car at 11% interest. Yes. So I had to unlearn to live not with a plan. I had to be like, okay, hold on. I am earning income and I have to be fiscally responsible for what the Lord has given me. Just like a CFO, I'm fiscally responsible for where the organization is going, and I have to prepare statements for a board. I have to tell them where the money are coming and how they're going, what's happening, what is increasing, where should we could make some cuts, or where could we do some increases. Just like I do that with an organization's finances, I had to do it with our lives, with my money.
Wow. So I want to ask you one more question
Sure.
before we take some other Q&A.
Yes.
But if someone were to ask you, if someone has asked you right now, hey, where do I start? What would you say? What's the biblical foundation for building wealth?
Wow. So I have a couple of different verses, okay? One of them, and it's my preferred one, would be writing the vision. If we don't write the vision, we will and I just forgot the English translation.
Yeah, if we will run with the vision.
We
If we
will
write
run,
it down, then we'll
yes.
be able to run with the
Thank you. I'm
vision.
thinking Spanish right now. So, like, writing the vision because you will perish. That will be my first verse. That was the verse that brought me to a
Mhm.
very, like, it shook me. The second one would be when Jesus was teaching about the talents, and he gave one talent to one, three, and five. And then he's like saying how the boss of these three individuals came back, and he was so upset because one of them did nothing. So for me, it is very important for
Mhm.
us to not use as an excuse what we have or we don't have. Like, not to ever compare ourselves with other people. If we have one talent, only one talent, and talent was a way of a coin, right? Of monetary
Monetary.
value. So a currency. So if God gave you only one, why are we hiding it? Or why are we always complaining that we only have one? So instead of complaining, and listen, I think as a church, we complain way too much. Now, even if when we get more, now we get complained because we have more, or because I don't know how to spend the money, or it's like a complaining nature. And when I think about this, I think about, the Israelites. This was one of their main problems, if we could learn from them, is that in the Old Testament, they were complaining because they were slaves. God takes them out, but he didn't take them out like they were thinking, because he needed to teach them something, right? He cannot give you 10 if you don't know how to steward the one. So God needed to teach and stewardship to the Israelites, so when they would get to the promised land, they were going to be able to steward the promised land. This was a wonderful land. This was a wealthy land. This land had grapes, had honey. It was fluent. This wasn't like dry. So how can they steward that when they were coming from Egypt, that was the dry land? They were not bosses of anyone there. They were slaves of people. They had a slave mentality. So they needed to go through school to then get to the promised land and be able then to steward well. And I think we need to allow ourselves to not complain,
Mhm.
learn from the Israelites, and allow God and the Holy Spirit to teach us. So even if it's one or two or 10 or 100, we can steward it well unto Him, unto His glory.
Yeah, I can't say it any better than that. It's all about the talents. That's the whole foundation of all of it.
Mm,
It's about stewarding what God has given us already and then allow Him to multiply that.
mm,
Don't hide from it. Don't run from it. Don't waste it.
no.
Just take what you've got and start there, and then you will begin to multiply and grow. It's a principle in the Bible. It works, it works, it works. You just have to trust God and believe it.
Mhm.
So let's go to Q&A.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, anything, you comments that you heard tonight, something you'd like to drop in the chat, question, like, love, all those different things.
Yeah.
We love like hearing from you. It's exciting. It's actually
Mm,
encouraging when we see that you guys are being changed and that you have incredible stories yourself.
mm,
We want to help you, through, like I said before, go to the description, and if you haven't done the seeds program, or if you started and didn't get all the way through it, revisit it and start it over. There's no shame in any of that. Just go through it because it will change the way you see money, and it will set you up for exactly what you're trying to obtain by creating wealth, right,
I
Deanna?
think, yes, and I love the word that you just chose. You said shame. There is a spirit of shame that comes attached with money sometimes. When you see money as your own money, you will feel shame. But when you see the riches that you have, even if it's the one or the 10, you see them as that they belong to God, you will never be ashamed. You will always see like God has blessed me. And you can even ask God, God, give me wisdom to steward what you've given me. How, if I only have one, what should I do? And that's what the boss told this one person. If you knew that I was gonna come and ask you what you've done, why didn't you just even invest it and put it in the bank to get some interest?
Yeah.
And that response hasn't changed. We still have banks and you still can make interest. And it might be not too much, but we're not going to be complainers and we're not going to feel ashamed. When I felt shame before, I remember feeling shame because guess what? I paid things. You remember when we had checks? I would do checks out and then I didn't have enough funds. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm an accountant and my check just rebounded. Yes, I did it. I did it. Not with my other finances, but my personal ones. And that's when I started unlearning certain things. And I started learning, hold on, I really need to understand that what I have belongs to God. And I repented. I did. I said, God, forgive me. Forgive me for not seeing it. Forgive me for not writing the vision. That's why I felt lost. It's because I didn't have a vision. And the Bible is very clear. If you don't have a vision,
You will
you will
perish.
perish. And I was perishing. So if you are feeling ashamed, condemnation, just ask God for forgiveness and repent, and then write your vision so you will not perish.
Yeah, we're all right now exactly where we are supposed to be. Now, you might be in a position where you did lose a job, or you don't have that much money in savings, or you're late on your bills, but we're still exactly where we need to be to learn what God has for us. If we begin to take the principles that we find in the Bible, just like the stewarding the talents, sowing and reaping, your life and your finances will change drastically. But the problem is, and this goes us included,
Yeah.
God puts us in situations. We're watching this week like this show on, I don't know, Netflix is about yachts, billionaires and yachts, and we're looking at these yachts like $100 billion yachts and all these crazy things. I'm like, wow, God, that would be great to have. Why don't I have that? I've been good with money, but the reality is I probably couldn't handle it right now, even though I think that I could. But God knows what we can handle. He knows what He has in place. And where you are right now might be because you're to make an impact in somebody else's life that you don't even know right now. Maybe you do know them, but there is a purpose. There
Mhm.
really is a purpose for why you're going through what you're going through right now. So don't get discouraged. Don't feel like it's the end of the day and the end of the rope and it's all over, because it's not. Think
Mhm.
about, what is the purpose in this, God? How can I take what you've already given me and multiply that? Show me, God, how I can multiply what you've already put in my hands. And He will do it. He's done it with us. He's done it with so many people that we've talked to. It works. It's His principles. He doesn't lie.
And we're going through it right now. Chad mentioned it before. we had certain contracts and they fell through. So now he doesn't have a steady W-2. I don't have the contracts. We don't have the business contracts. But we had principles. We've been faithful when we had like smaller amounts. So we know that our Father will not allow us to be ashamed. That we know. Remember the theme of this, or the title is faith and finance. And I, at some point, I had to do like a check on my heart, because as an accountant, 1 + 1 = 2, right? But that's when I have to go to my faith and know, God, as long as I'm faithful with what you've given me, and as long as I'm stewarding well, and I'm not spending money on this and that, maybe this is the moment for us to watch a movie at home. This is the moment to be eating at home all the time, and maybe 2 meals of the month out. When we travel, that's the moment we're going to go out. Listen, God is faithful. And our faith, remember, faith and finance, is that we are on the rock that does not move. And when you have faith in God, in your creator, in your provider, in the provider, your house is on a foundation that is the rock and is immovable. He will not allow you to be ashamed, and He will give you abundance. Abundance, which is one of our values,
Yeah.
right? Abundance is not just having lots of money in the bank. Abundance implies being healthy, spiritually, emotionally, mentally healthy. And God is writing a testimony right now with our lives.
Yes.
This YouTube live is a testimony. What you are going through, Label, like what you are sharing, everyone that is watching, what you are going through is the testimony. Now open up your life for God to do the miracle through faith and your finances.
So LaBelle, you just mentioned, yeah, I'm writing down my vision and starting again. Listen, and this is something I had to learn. Like Deanna reminds me all this time, like I'm just gonna start over. She's like, no, you've already started. It's not, LaBelle, you're not starting over. You're just continuing where you left off. You don't have, you're not starting over, you're continuing. You've already built a foundation. Now it's getting stronger, it's getting wider, it's getting deeper. So sometimes we might think we're starting over. And Deanna reminds me of this all the time. I'm just like, it's not doing anything. She's like, no, you have been doing it. Well, I'm not seeing it happen. No, you've been working on this for years. It's happening. Sometimes we feel as though we're not making any progress, but literally underneath the surface, there's so much progress being made, so much foundation. Every time you do one thing with your finances, you're building confidence inside yourself, inside your mind. You're rewiring your mind.
Yes.
And you don't even realize it's happening. So you're continuing and you're moving and moving. So I want to encourage everybody, don't get discouraged. Just keep going on. Even when there's nothing in your checking account and it feels hopeless, keep looking at your wealth plan, your budget, your expenses. Don't stop. Because one day you're going to look at that account and you're going to be like, where did all this come from? Because it's little by little.
Yeah. And I love, for those of you that were here when we started Diversify 3 years ago, it's going to be 3 years ago that we started these conversations in August, right? You remember seeing Chad, right? I'm not going to throw him under the bus, but I am. If you remember, he wasn't the man that is speaking to you right now. And he's like, I'm going to start, but I have to remind him, when you started 3 years ago, that's when you started. Now you are continuing building upon what you started 3 years ago. And he might not notice, but you and I notice that He speaks differently, right? He feels more comfortable with the camera. It wasn't like this 3 years ago. So, just like that, you are just continuing building. You might feel a little bit stretched, but we have to be stretched, right? We have to be go one step backwards to go to the next step. And that happens in every organization. Sometimes organizations, what they do is that then downsize a bit, and that's what a lot of organizations are doing right now. They're letting go staff, but they do that because then they reframe their structure. So they look at the infrastructure and they revisit that infrastructure. The vision didn't change, but how we apply that vision and how we get it done, that will change. So the structure will change, the amount of people that were working will change, but the vision has not changed. Your vision has not changed, but the structure, the way how you were going to accomplish it, maybe that is being changed right now.
Yeah, I've learned that honestly, you guys, I have no idea how we're going to accomplish some of the things that God's called us to do. Like financially, in my mind, I could think, well, we're going to do this and we're going to buy this and we're going to have these properties and it'll pay for it. But in at the end of the day, I don't know because like anything could happen. The only person that knows how it's going to happen is God. So that means that's the only person that we could really truly trust in and believe in God because we don't know how everything's gonna. But what we do, just take His principles, trust Him, and keep going.
Mhm.
And I'll drop it there because I could go on all night. I do want to say this Diversify call is for you guys. We're doing this for you. It's not just put knowledge on YouTube and everything. This is really because we want to connect with you guys. We want to share with you and we want to be here for you.
Yeah.
So keep writing us, keep sending us emails, get on the app, let us know things you want to hear about. We're doing all kinds of things on YouTube, other kind of trainings and that.
Yeah.
But this is for the community. This
Yes.
is not for us to sell anything or get you to sign up for stuff. This is for you because we want to see you fulfill your purpose.
Yeah, go to our website even and look at the free tools that we have. We have free quizzes, free classes in Spanish and English. We're really focusing also like in Spanish community, taking this to different countries as well. So our heart it is to see you financially free, to see you working your purpose and in his will, right?
Yeah, so I know we're getting a little long here. I don't want to keep you guys all night, but thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate all the comments and the questions. We love you guys. It's so great to see you and have you with us. Share this stream with your friends and reach out to us if you have more questions. Join Seeds if you haven't done that and keep
Yeah.
going, okay? And then, it will be all right. Even if you don't think it's going to be all right, I'm telling you, things are going to be all right. Just keep moving forward, right?
Yes.
So until next time, you guys be blessed.
Have a good night or morning or afternoon.